talked about, what I'm doing is, we talked last week about, and we meditated with one of the hindrances that we can speak about on the path. There's a few different ones, and I'm not a big fan of the word hindrance. So I like to call them friends on the path, because it's something, these hindrances are something that's inevitable. Like, we all will experience them. We all do experience them. Oh, come on. Why is this not working? Okay, there we go. Last week we talked about doubt. And so today we'll be talking about restlessness and worry. And so we're going to start with our meditation, but before we do that, I want to talk about, these are heart-mind states that can really do a number on our sense of well-being. And it's inevitable that these will arise. However, how we relate to these, these friends on the path, these hindrances, is really important. And we're going to talk a lot about that in our talk. And so we'll start with meditation, and I will guide you through sort of working with this hindrance of restlessness and worry, and they go together. And I shared in the email that this is one that I'm very familiar with. This is probably like the number one hindrance that I would say gets me the most, kind of like I get caught in the most. And I experience is actually the thing that really brought me to meditation practice, was this particular flavor of suffering. The pain of restlessness and worry is like I said earlier, it's inevitable. It's going to happen, but it becomes suffering when our relationship to it isn't, I want to say, wholesome. So there is a way that we can relate to this that can allow us to experience it without the added suffering. And I'll talk more about that as we go. So let's go ahead and begin. I want you to just get yourself comfortable, or allow yourself to settle in. It can be really helpful to begin with, let me get my timer ready here, by just engaging in this practice of orienting. So you can look around your space, and your thinking mind might go, well, this is silly, like, but the nervous system is often scanning for opportunity or threat. And so that we can relax more fully, it's helpful to orient. You can even let yourself look behind you. This is for your nervous system. Yeah. Okay, and then letting yourself arrive. And this arrival can be like coming all the way into the body. And so just letting yourself be all in your body. Filling your body with your awareness from the inside. And how does it feel in there? You might sense that you can scan your body and soften, any obvious areas of tension. Even inviting in like 5 or 10% more ease if it's available. Noticing what happens when you sort of incline your attention towards 5 or 10% more ease. And then, inclining the mind, heart towards the breath, your natural breath. No need to deepen it or change it or fix it. Just allowing yourself to be aware of your breath as it is right now. Just being aware of a long breath or a short breath. a deep breath or shallow breath. A jumpy breath or a smooth breath. And just however your breath is, no attempt to fix or change it. Fixing or changing our experience is a sign of judgment. There's this just sense of inner war when we're trying to fix or change our experience. So we're just dropping that sort of habitual tendency and sort of noticing when we do it. Or when where there's an attempt to do it, there need be no inner curation of the experience that we're having. Like we don't have to organize our inner world to suit us. We can actually just take our hands off the controls for now and take refuge in the sense of being embodied and take refuge in the breath. One of the ways that we work with a sense of restlessness is to deepen into a sense of embodiment. And we'll do that through just a really simple connection to the elements of the body that are related to the elements of earth, of air, of water, and of fire. So we'll just begin with the bones. Just sensing your bones. Sensing the heaviness and the sturdiness of your bones. Especially like the bones of the lower body. So bones of your feet. Bones of your toes. Bones of your ankles. Bones of your calves, your fibula and your tibia. Bones of your knees. Your thigh bones. Your hip bones. The pelvic girdle, pelvic bowl, bones of the pelvis. Sensing the bones all together of the lower body. Bones of the spinal column, the vertebrae. Bones of, the rib cage, the shoulder blades. Bones of the collar, like the collar bones. And the shoulders, the bones of the upper arms. Bones of the elbows and the forearms and the wrists. bones of the hands and the fingers. And all the bones of the skull and the jaw, part of the bones of the skull. Heaviness of bones. Earth element in the body. Adding the sense of breath, the feeling of breath. The way the breath moves your bones. The way it rises and falls. Soothing. Air element. Different than the earth element. Just sensing the air element in your body. As we're doing this meditation, there's always the activity of the mind. We want to be aware of rehearsing, remembering, planning, judging, complaining, evaluating, fantasizing. It can be helpful to just name the texture of the mind as the thought forms, or the texture of thought forms, so that we can, more easily unhook from the activity of the mind, which is very tied to our restlessness and our worry. And just to come back when we notice we've engaged in some activity of mind to the meditation. And even including thoughts as part of meditation. Not making any part of our experience at odds with our inherent belonging. And sensing now the blood in the body, the pulsing of blood. And other water elements in the body, the water in the eyes, the water inside the mouth, the water in the cells. Water, so much a part of our body's makeup. The salty water. The water element, very much a part of us. And now moving to the continual transformation that is happening inside of our bodies. You know, nutrients that we consume being metabolized and changed, cells constantly changing, you know, cells dying and cells being reborn, everything being kind of this transformation being a part of the fire element inside of our bodies. All of this happening often without our even, you know, paying much attention to it. So what it's like to just sense these elements in our bodies right now, to draw our attention towards them, to take refuge in them. And if we get lost in the trance of thinking, you can notice that too and just come back to the breath or to the felt sense of the body. Just really relax. If restlessness is here with you, or it may appear as we're sitting together, like rather than ignoring it or kind of hooking into the thought forms that it generates, you can just kind of sense like, yeah, where do I feel it in my body? We can work this way with any emotion that arises. Where do I feel it? What happens when I bring in attention? Am I trying to fix it or change it? It's my relationship to restlessness. We often don't like it, so it's really natural to try to fix or change it. And just for now, we want to unhook from that tendency and just be aware. And this awareness is in a way a practice of allowing. Allowing doesn't mean I like it. Allowing just means, yeah, I'm just making more space for it, igniting a sense of curiosity around this feeling that I often take very personally. We can always come back to the breath anytime we need to just sort of gather our attention and come back to the felt sense of the body as well. If your eyes are closed, you're invited to blink them open. Welcome, Courtney, Marilyn, Vicky, Jatanya, Birgit, Cassie, Marlene. Hi. Good to sit with you. So let's all just tune into, what brought you here? What's your intention? What's your aspiration? And I encourage us all to bring our intention into present moment time. We're not going anywhere. And I don't think this focus, when we think of intention on future self, is helpful if we don't ground it in the present. So, what is it that you're most wanting to feel or receive by, coming together to both sit and talk about this friend on the path or hindrance on the path called restlessness and worry? And you can pop it into the chat.
I want to get grounded again. I feel like I'm spiraling out of control. So just getting regrounded, getting focused.
Okay. Thank you, Cassie. And if you can pop it into the chat, that's great, because I want to make sure I have a time to do our Dharma talk. Peace of mind and body. Yes, Marlene. So knowing our intention is really helps wake up out of unconsciousness. Always more clarity. She's noticing the pattern, right? Always more clarity, what matters right now, and go from there. Good. Yeah. Jatanya, to connect with community and work on myself. Beautiful. Marilyn, taking time for healing and grounding. Okay, beautiful. Okay, before I go into our talk, and as I had mentioned at the beginning, and some of you joined after I said this, what I've been doing is, like last time I talked about doubt, right? I didn't just pull that out of the air. The Buddha actually talked about, he called them hindrances, at least that's our translation from Pali. And so there are these classical sort of study of the hindrances. And I've always liked better to refer to them as friends on the path, because the word hindrance to me automatically brings up a way of relating to them in which I'm at war. And so I like friend on the path. And sometimes these translations are not super clean, so so much of the problem that we experience with the hindrances is, one, we're unconscious to them. But I'll back up a little bit more to, why are we unconscious of them? Well, oftentimes we're unconscious to them because there's a deep inner sense that they shouldn't be there. And so one of our ways of not dealing with it, because we sense deep down they shouldn't be there, is by just being unconscious, which isn't helpful at all, because then we act unskillfully from the hindrance. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about with restlessness and worry is another one of the hindrances, doubt being the first one we talked about. Today we're going to talk about restlessness and worry. There's others. Anger is another one. Addiction to sensual desire. Sensual desire, it's not even a sexual thing necessarily. It's like sensual desire, like eating, sleeping, like anything that we crave sensually we can get hooked into, and it can be like chocolate. Yeah, Marlene, we can get hooked into it, right? So we're going to be exploring these different friends on the path in these talks. Something that I got really clear on when I was on retreat, before I go into any further talk, I just want to say, and I really do appreciate your donations. So I tend to run out of time at the end of these talks to really talk about this. These talks are freely offered, and your donations really make a difference. So I do really appreciate your donations. Something I got really, and you can donate to me. I think there is a button. There should be a button hooked to the email that was sent about this class, and I'm on all the stuff. I'm on Venmo and PayPal and Zelle. Um, and something I got really clear about when I was on a recent retreat was that these talks I'm going to really prioritize. So either I will be here every Tuesday, and if I can't make it, I'm looking at Marlene. She's an associate coach of the Embodied Mindfulness School. And so she may come and do a talk. She's got a robust and very wise and deep practice. And if not, I have other students who are equally as capable of coming to you and holding space in this way. And so, yeah, so this is going to be a Tuesday thing unless something weird happens. And so sharing this, if you find these talks helpful, I really would appreciate, you can share the email that's sent to you to people in your contact list that you think would benefit. So I really would like to support us all to shore up our hearts and minds during this time of uncertainty. By the way, it's always a time of uncertainty. It's like, right. But it's really in our face right now. And so many people are turning to their spiritual practices because we're realizing that it is, as my teacher calls it, the hope of the world, to find the imperturbable within us, to connect to it. And that's why I love these practices, because you don't have to believe anything. Just come and see for yourself. There is a knowing inside of you that is beyond belief about your inherent goodness. You have a capacity to know it in your bones. You have a capacity to connect to an internal compass that is, it's like our own deep bullshit meter, like, or whatever you want to call it. Like we can know what's right and what's wrong on a deep level. And I came to know this when I first found meditation practice when I was 26. I learned that if I just sat my butt down, and what got me to sit my butt down was restlessness and anxiety. And it never went away. And it was just this thing I carried with me. And I always kind of felt like I was a walking mask because no one knew. It's not like I talked about it. What I realized when I started sitting with it, when I started teaching this stuff, was that I wasn't alone, that this was actually common to the human experience. And no one talks about it very much. We try to get rid of it a lot. Even in therapeutic settings, we can go into therapy and talk about how, that we're dealing with anxiety, and, we can be met with tools to fix this experience. Medications, which I am not against medications. I've taken them at different times in my life, and I think they can be very helpful when paired with really good practice, whatever that your form of practice may be. So I'm not an advocate of meds on their own, but I do think that meds can really help us navigate overwhelming emotions when they take us out of the game completely. So that's just my two cents on medication. But and so I think it can be really helpful. And so that being said, most of our cultural relationship, like when we look at our culture and we look at, historically too, the way that we deal with discomfort, whatever that discomfort is. In this case, we're talking about restlessness, which can be really uncomfortable, especially when we add resistance to it. And so resistance, we are at war with it because we have this, we've bought into this idea in some way, shape, or form that we should always feel good. And if we don't, there must be something wildly wrong with us or wildly wrong with our life. And this really robs us of the well-being that we have access to when we drop the war, which is part of what these teachings are here for, so that we can drop the war. We have, and I really want you to feel this. I want you to have confidence in your capacity to work with this stuff. Let me say this again. I want you to have confidence in your capacity to work with this stuff. Okay? So this is before we engage in any of this, you have some confidence in your degree to work with this stuff, or you wouldn't be here. But to make this confidence conscious, yes, you too. No one is such a hopeless case that they can't work with this stuff. And it's such good news that we have tools that we can utilize to work with this stuff. And so that's a given. Really confidence. And I remind myself of this all the time. Like, I can do it. And that belief is operating in the background that I can't. It's like, they're talking to someone else. It's like, no, me too. I can too. And I mean, I was, when I found the practice at 26, 20 years ago, I was so riddled with restlessness and anxiety for no apparently good reason. I had a good job, I had a good relationship, I had a home. I didn't have any real external reason to be frightened all the time, but I was. And nothing was working anymore. And so none of my usual escape mechanisms were working, and therapy wasn't really working in any like deep way. And I wanted to find freedom from this. And so I started a meditation practice, and it did touch me into what I was talking about a little while ago. You have something in you, like a deep knowing within you, an imperturbability within you. And it's beyond your belief structures, it's beyond your thinking mind. And you can't hold it and you can't find it because it's as plain as the nose on your face, but get your butt on the cushion every day. Just have like confidence in your capacity to wake up. That's what I love about these practices, is that they teach us, they actually wake us up, right? So that you have a knowing. And my belief is, gosh, if more and more humans had this knowing in them, like it's not my belief, it's my knowing. We would be a lot, freer. We'd be a lot happier. We'd be a lot more, just like, there would be a lot less violence. There would be a lot less of the bullshit that's going on in our world right now, dealing with, oh God, there's so many, there's so much, the racial injustice, the ridiculous kind of camps that we put ourselves in around COVID-19, turning into some kind of political, it's so crazy. So, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. And so rather than focus on, I want to focus on the deep, because I do think, if we connect to that within, which is inherently wholesome and good, then everything else sort of takes care of itself. And then we take right action accordingly. But I really believe it needs to start here. And often, though, it's not like we break it up. We do the inner work and then we do the outer work. The inner work and the outer work mingle together. Once we do the inner work, it's impossible to really bury our heads and put them in the sand and not take right action. Okay, so the first piece, I always like to talk about 3 pieces. The first thing I wanted to talk about with restlessness and worry was to understand it. The first thing we want to do is really understand it well, rather than trying to bypass it. And I've kind of hinted at this a lot as I've started out here. And so I have some things I want to share with you about this. So if we understand the terrain, right, it's like a map of terrain. Like if you've really, like if you're about to go on a hike and you've really like looked at the map and you understand maps and all of that, you have more confidence and you can be more at ease sort of doing the hike. As opposed to if you don't know how long the hike is, if you don't know if it's hard or not, if you don't know like what you're about to, it can have us feeling, really agitated and nervous and not able to just settle into the terrain. Such is the case with something like restlessness and worry. So to understand these friends on the path, to really understand these hindrances, is an essential component to being free from them. So, and free from it doesn't mean getting rid of it. As long as we have a nervous system, we will be visited by restlessness and worry. So, restlessness is really a state of agitation and overexcitement. So it doesn't have to be like negative. Like we can feel restlessness, and it is similar to like an excited feeling, right? If you're really excited about something that's going to happen, in that sense, the body, if you feel into it, there's an aggravation, there's an agitation. And so that's is an embodied state, how we experience it. We tend to feed it with constant activity rather than dealing with it. So I'll say that again. We tend to feed it with constant activity rather than dealing with it. And it doesn't work, does it? Like staying busy just tends to strengthen it. So something else I wrote down is it's unpleasant. And if we aren't skilled at being with this kind of discomfort, a lot of these practices actually are training us, teaching us to be skilled at being with discomfort, right? And I mean, that it's just, we're just being honest. Life is painful. Every day there's pain in life. There's things that will happen internally and externally that won't agree with us, that we won't like, that won't be comfortable. There's also things internally and externally that happen all the time that are wonderful, that we don't even notice because we're so busy trying to manage the discomfort. And so this teaching can free us up to stop being guarded against the inevitable. And that way, actually, we can fully enjoy our lives because we're not kind of guarded against what could go wrong. The nervous system often being, on the lookout for threat or opportunity. And so when we can see through that a little bit more, we can be freed up from it. So a lot of these teachings help us be with discomfort, right? And if like you're someone who's looking for like the magic whatever bullet, you're not going to want to hear this. And that's okay, because there's plenty of teachings that, are about clearing the body of problems, or, take this or do that or whatever. That ain't me. And so, if you're here, you're likely someone who's like, I really want something that quote unquote works. And this is actually, we know this through studies and science too, like mindfulness works. But it doesn't work by getting rid of anything. It works by establishing a different relationship to that which we've been frightened by. In truth, a lot of the stuff that we're in opposition to, we're kind of frightened by. So in order to work with unpleasantness or discomfort, we need patience. We need patience, right? We need discipline, and we need courage. We need patience, we need discipline, and we need courage. All of these things can be cultivated. Patience can be cultivated, and so can discipline, and so can courage. And so with that being said, further along the line of understanding restlessness and worry, the first thing I wanted to talk about here is it can be mental, and oftentimes is. So we may experience persistent thinking, and that persistent thinking is what we call worry. So restlessness as a mental activity is worry. And it can be differentiated from the feeling of restlessness in the body. And as a matter of fact, one of the things we want to do to work with, if you're someone like me who kind of worries. I don't know why I do it. I just do. I don't do it nearly as much anymore, but there was a time in my life when it was really painful how much I would worry about things. And it almost seems like something you can't stop. And indeed, you can't stop it. But the invitation is to, rather than keep like stirring the thoughts up in the mind, we come into the body and we start sense, okay, where's the feeling behind this worry? And then we'll touch upon restlessness, usually. It can also show up, the mental restlessness can show up as an inability, as Cassie pointed to focus. So an unsettled mind, or monkey mind. The monkey mind's always searching for things and it's never satisfied. Okay, so the monkey mind's food energetically is restlessness. Okay, and if we notice that like we're trying to find comfort through some thought form, we're never going to get there, right? Because it's just never satisfied that way. So worry, if we were to unpack worry a little bit more, it's concern over imagined futures. An insecure self-concept leading to agitation. What will people think? So there's the concern over imagined futures. That's one form of worry. But another form of worry is the insecure self-concept, like having fear about what people will think. You can even notice we come into like even this small community of meditators, right? And there can be just a natural way that the nervous system feels unsettled, because even before thought, we're sort of like, oh, what will people think of me? We are animals. We don't want to forget that. We're very sophisticated, but we are in an animal body, and we have nervous systems that have experienced rupture in relationship, and have experienced to varying degrees being judged for who we are. And so a lot of us have trepidations around being seen. And depending on our life experiences, depending on our backgrounds, that can vary. But this ties into the insecure self-concept. And this can lead to a feeling of shame for no reason. So if you've ever sensed that, I can really relate to this core shame. I worked a lot with it when I was on retreat. This like, I don't know why it's here. I just feel like I'm not good. I just feel like there's something wrong with me. And so this is shame for no reason. Not wrong, not bad. We just want to see it. That's why I really worked at unpacking this as cleanly and clearly as I could. Now, if worry or agitation is overwhelming, it's like really helpful to get help. Whether that be from a skilled therapist, I recommend someone who is trained in mindfulness, not just trained, but actually is a practitioner. There is a difference. But getting support is really helpful, because the nervous system, we do need co-regulation. We do co-regulate. And so we need a loving other. And this is different than coming into this sort of community. So it's actually one-on-one work is really helpful at working with this. If we're finding that it's disrupting our capacity to, I mean, we can be able to do life well, but I mean, just to feel okay in our skin, like in our bodies, if we're finding that this is really, really strong, then getting help is good. So I just wanted to mention that. And if we feel like we've been working with this for a long time and it's not really shifting much, that can be a sign. It was for me that I just needed to get support, right? And that's when I found my teacher 20 years ago, who was someone who was trained and a practitioner of mindfulness practice. So a teacher, a mentor can be good. That can help as well. Okay. So the second thing I wanted to speak to, and I'm going to check our time. Okay. I'm like, you know what? I really love like not feeling rushed around these things. And so I'm wondering if it would be okay. And I had this thought when I started this, when I was writing out my notes, I'm like, it could be that I continue this conversation in our next sit. And so I'm just going to like mention a few things about how to work with it. And then we'll sort of wrap it up next week, in our next talk. and we'll also open up to another friend on the path. And I'll let you know what that will be in my email, because I'm looking at, we have about like 8 minutes left. And so let's go ahead and touch on, so the first thing we did was we were aware. We were just becoming more aware. That was the first step, understanding. And I unpacked that for you. And then we're going to talk about how to work with it. So the first thing is what you're doing right now, being mindful of it. And being mindful of it is like this broad term. So let me get a little more specific. Feeling it physically. I was working with a client the other day who's done so much healing work. And I gave her a really simple, it was our first session. I gave her a really simple tool, and she kind of blew her mind. I said, so from today until the next time we meet, I want you to be in your body. And she was like, and I'm like, be in your body like your hair's on fire. Like, and that just kind of lit her up, like, whoa. And she's like, of all the years I've done all kinds of energy work, I've seen so many different kinds of healers, I've done so many kinds of therapy. Anyway, why have I not heard this? The Buddha did call this work against the stream for a reason. I mean, we're so hooked on, oh, there must be some way to get rid of this discomfort. And sometimes unknowingly, even well-intentioned healers can orient in this way. Well, this work will clear it. If I hear that one more time, it just drives me bonkers when I hear that word. Because to me, I think it's like, it's like, okay. And then someone's like, okay, well, if I just do this mantra enough times, I'll get rid of it. And then we're frustrated with ourselves because it doesn't work. And then we just add more to this core shame. And so I really am like on a mission to debunk that. I always have been. People have said, I really like how you talk about like, the shadowy parts of us. And I'm like, well, I do that because they're only shadowy because we've pushed them down so much because we don't want to be uncomfortable. And so feeling it physically means we're in our bodies. And being in the body is a great way to work with worry, which is the mental, if we're having a hard time focusing, being in the body and then tethering that attention with the breath, right? So the two things we worked with when we began meditation today, embodiment and breath, right? I started with those two for a reason. So if we live not just on our cushions, but we're like doing this as much as we can remember, it's going to help with the preoccupation with fear stories or with the preoccupation about ourselves. A lot of our neurosis comes back to, and I mean this with love because we all have it, preoccupation with moi, with me. I'm at the center of my world, my problems, my concerns, my worries, my fear. We get almost obsessed with that. My depression. And so it's like, I shouldn't have said my depression because depression's quite complex and thick. And so, but depression actually is a lot. If we really check it out, it's a lot of self-hatred. Like if the inner critic's really loud with depression, so loud that the system just sort of shuts down. So if we can do things that unhook us from the preoccupation with the monkey mind, which is always only concerned with moi, right? And we can start to focus out more. That can really help. Patience, sitting still with it can help it to settle. So if you notice that you're feeling restless, sit still with it. If you've noticed you've been triggered, I had a moment last week when I had a phone conversation with someone and I said something that the person didn't like, and then she quickly got off the phone with me. Do you ever have that happen? Like, I knew I had said something that in my wisdom, I knew I had said something that she couldn't tolerate. And then in my wisdom also knew that that wasn't the right time to address that. And so my wisdom said it was just the best option to let her get off the phone and to pick it up later if I chose to. But after I got off the phone, I noticed my nervous system kind of firing. What I did, rather than get busy with that, which is a habit of mine, let me check my email, let me check on the kids or whatever, I sat on my couch back here. I just sat and let myself settle, right? It didn't get rid of it, but it just gave me more agency, more capacity to work with it. And the last thing I want to mention is it's helpful to trace back to what caused it if you can. Okay, it's helpful to trace back to what caused it if you can. Like in this instance, it was this phone call with this person. I can trace it back. Sometimes if it's just this like kind of chronic sense, it's like you don't like have to do all that work to trace it back to what caused it. But if it's like you can note, okay, it happened, I was okay, and then something happened, something shifted, like to unpack it can be helpful. All right, I'm going to come to a landing place with this, and then I'll tie this up next time. The third piece was that there are ways we can prevent it from arising. So I wanted to talk about that and how we can help prevent it. It's going to arise. We won't be guarded against it, but there's things we can do that will help it not be so prominent or prevalent in our lives. All right, loves, it's time for us to come to a close, come to landing place. If you'd be so kind as to pop into the chat anything that you found really helpful about today's meditation and Dharma talk, I would appreciate the feedback. Okay. Intention today is to dig into why. Yeah, good. And you know what, Vicki, I would even add to this. I would say focus more on action and less on the why. And I think that all makes sense to you. Focus more on action and less on trying to figure out the why. Okay. Tired. So I'm not sleepy when I start. I'm just reading some comments now. Is that an internal escape mechanism bypass? And then, yeah. Or can I just actually still be tired? I think that's a good thing for, just kind of inquire into that, Birgit. You get really tired after practicing in the morning. So I'm not sleepy when I woke up. Is that an internal escape? When I get really tired during meditation practice after practicing 30 to 45 minutes, asana in the morning. Or are you avoiding your meditation practice? I'm not sure on that. I get really tired during meditation practice after practicing 30 to 45 minutes of asana in the morning. Woke up without alarm. Is that an internal? Oh yeah, when you get really tired, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, sleepiness is a hindrance. And I think when I teach about that, you'll be able to like have a better understanding of that. Great information, especially the part about feeling. Okay, good. Thanks, Chaitanya. Mindfulness establishes a different relationship. Thank you. Okay. Thinking about the act is, if you're good, Courtney. Awesome. Okay, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with me. Yeah. And then, in terms of taking action, like I was talking to Vicki, and then break it down one step at a time, and just seeing how that goes. Yeah. All right, focusing on action sometimes is the fastest way to get us out of procrastination around things that are scary to us. All right, so we'll just go ahead and, you might let your gaze, those of you who are on camera, if you're not on camera, you can just, imagine that you're like sending this loving kindness or this metta to each other. I'm going to go ahead and sing my song as we look at each other. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy. Okay, I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye. You can take yourself off mute if you want and say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Bye.